went to Maryville High School and graduated in '63, and then was fortunate to be able to get a Naval ROTC scholarship over at Vanderbilt. So don't throw anything. It's a good thing everything is muted right now because I get a lot of harassment about that. But anyway, graduated there in '67 and went into flight school right out of there, and got my wings in 1969 in Beeville, Texas. And I asked for first choice airplane, and was the A-7 Corsair. The A-7 was a follow-on aircraft to the A-4 Skyhawk, and the duty station I went to was at Naval Air Station Lemoore, which was only about 8 years old out then. It's a brand new Naval Air Station in the San Joaquin Valley there. So that's where I went through training for the A-7 and was assigned to VA 25, Attack Squadron 25. And Jim called me a fighter pilot, but I was really known as an attack pilot because the attack guys in the Navy anyway flew attack aircraft like the A-4 and the A-6, the A-7, and the A-1 Skyraider, but the fighters flew F-4s, Phantoms, and later on the F-14s, and before the Phantoms, the F-8s. And so, but I did a lot of air-to-air stuff later on, so I'm fighter attack. How's that? Anyway, went to, finished up at Lemoore, in my flight training there. Went to VA 25, signed in that squadron. We had 18, sometimes 20 pilots in our squadron. There were about 9 squadrons on board the carrier. And the carrier that we were going to be with was the Ranger out of Oakland there. And so in October, late October of 1970, we all trooped up to San Francisco and boarded the Ranger for our total of about 8-month cruise to Vietnam. We sailed. It was really pretty neat. All our wives were up on the Golden Gate when we went underneath. And if you've ever done that transit, it's a really thrilling thing to do and see a beautiful city. And I don't know what it's like out there now, but back then it was terrific. We sailed off, stop in Hawaii, and then over to Vietnam, and arrived on station in Vietnam right about November the 15th, somewhere in there. And had my first mission that day. Let me just tell you a couple of things about, we were in a battle group, and we were escorted by some destroyers, and I believe there was a cruiser there, but we were, I think, sharing battle stations with the Kitty Hawk as the other carrier group at the time, and that changed later on. But we were at up in a Yankee station, which was kind of off the coast of Da Nang in that latitude thereabouts, and so our area of operation was up in that northern sector. And in fact, almost all my Vietnam experience was just barely south of Da Nang up to the border of North Vietnam. And our routine every day, for those of you that were not in the Navy, we would brief for our hops. We would be given our targets by the command center there in Vietnam and aboard the ship. And our airborne command and control was a C-130, actually, yes, I think it was a C-130 at the time. And so they would issue out targets after we would get airborne too, if we had a target change and whatnot. But we would get up every morning and we would brief for that day's hop and where we were going to bomb. Usually we had 2 flights a day. We operated off and on like from noon till midnight, and then the next group would take off at midnight till noon the next day. So we had a 24-hour coverage all the time, or I'd say most of the time, because we did have some alongside refueling we were going on. We always, about every 2 or 3 days, always had an ammo ship or a fueler, a tanker alongside just to keep us going. I mean, we were running through a lot of bombs and ordnance out there, and so it was pretty fast paced in that regard. We would brief as a group. If we had one big strike, we called it an alpha strike, and we would brief together. There could be anywhere up to 30 to 40 planes, and we would go in and strike a target, all of us having different roles to play. The fighters usually hung overhead to look out for any North Vietnamese or / Chinese MiGs that might be coming into our area. But we had pretty good air control at that time. It was just, it wasn't a flak-free zone to fly in, because we had a heck of a lot of flak coming from the ground. 23 millimeter to 35 millimeter. We had some SAMs coming up at us quite frequently, and so there was a lot of combat time there. We would take off from the ship, rendezvous, and take a big gaggle in and hit a target. And then when we're done with it, I'll head back out to the ship and land aboard in an orderly manner, mostly. And but the rest, most of our hops really were individual targets, and it was 2 to 4 airplanes would strike those targets. So we'd take off rendezvous. We were usually about 100 miles off the coast of Vietnam, and head into our target area. One of my first strikes was up on the in North Vietnam, in the southern part of North Vietnam, and actually it was kind of exciting because my first bombing run, I took out a steel bridge, and so that was pretty neat to be able to do that. But we had a lot of other things that we were going after up there. North Vietnamese trucks coming across the border and pulling all sorts of guns with them and troops, etc. And but then after that first few times above the into North Vietnam, we dropped back down into South Vietnam and Laos area, mostly with some Cambodia action also. So we were the flights we were controlled in our individual flights by a NAIL OV-10 Ford air controller. Those guys were fearless. I mean, I think they welded them in their cockpit and sent them up there. But it was really something. In fact, I had lost my mind along the way there, and I even volunteered to go fly with them for a week. So I went over to Nakhon Phanom, Thailand, and we flew around at anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000, 6,000 feet, getting shot at all the time, but we were spotting all the targets for all the fighters and attack aircraft that were rolling in on them. So it's really an amazing education for me just to sit back there in the back seat of that 2-seater airplane and watch all that was going on. Because of course I'd do a little flying so that the pilot up front could take notes or do whatever he needed to do. But it was really an amazing experience. You know, Vietnam was, you all know about it certainly, but it was frustrating because of all the political stuff that was going back and forth about that time. And we were not allowed to go north of the border after about 2 months that we were up there. And you could see the North Vietnamese come down in their trucks and just park on the north side of the border, like 10 feet from the border, knowing that we weren't allowed technically to pull in on them. And as soon as the sun went down, off they went.